All right, you're going to get some background noise fading in here. We're just standing by here at Intrepid Museum for the astronauts to take the stage. There are a ton of people out here tonight, but John Galloway with NSF here doing an Astro live show, speaking on the standby screen. Have a bit of a show tonight, talking about art in space. We've got Nicole Stott and Dr. Sian Proctor. They're going to be hanging out with Mike Massimino in the Shuttle Pavilion at Intrepid Museum. But just a slight delay to getting started this evening. I'm waiting for them to walk onto the stage, give me some 5x5s in chat. I think I'll just roll the intro and put the stream up, I guess, right? We got some 5x5s in chat over here. Lauren, thank you so much for the help. Just let me know that everything's working as anticipated. I'm going to go ahead and roll the NSF intro. And then we should be ready for them to walk onto the stage. They're not quite doing it yet.
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Echo down to nominal.
Flight downside, SPD off. SPD off. Off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? We don't need any more of these.
Okay. Let's try that one more time. Welcome, everyone, to Astronomy Night. There we go. Excellent. My name is Alicia Siegel. I'm the producer of public programs here at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. We are so excited to be welcoming you all back here on site. What an amazing turnout, first of all. Thank you all for coming out, braving the rain outside and everything. Hopefully you've had a chance to explore some of the amazing cool things we have going on downstairs. Our education department has some great activities and demonstrations. We've also got some really cool table activities over here. We've got an artist doing a VR experience. We've got the artist who put together the holograms that are going to be going up on a CubeSat in space soon. And then, of course, later on, we've got our wonderful guests here, Dr. Sian Proctor and Nicole Stott, who will be talking about their foundations and their experiences in space, too. So we've got all this going on all night long until about 9 o'clock. But before that, everyone, before we get to this presentation, did you know that this year is actually the 80th anniversary of the former USS Intrepid, the aircraft carrier that you are on right now? 80th birthday. How about it? Absolutely. So all year long, we're going to be doing all kinds of fun programming, just like this one. We've also got coming up more Free Fridays. We've got movie nights coming up. You can check out some cool movies. We're going to be showing Top Gun later on in May. We've also got our spectacular, of course, free series Astro Live that we do in partnership with NASA Spaceflight on the internet. So be sure to check that out every month. Plus, we've also got a number of other really cool behind-the-scenes programs online that you can tune in for, too, where we take you behind the scenes at some of the areas that are actually off limits to the public. So be sure to come back and check that out and keep your eyes peeled for our public program schedule. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it on over here to our guests. So I'd like to welcome to the stage here three amazing people who are going to be talking a bit about art in space tonight. So first of all, we've got our wonderful moderator, Mr. Mike Massimino, former NASA astronaut and our senior advisor for space programs here at the museum. And then we are also pleased to welcome here tonight former NASA astronaut Nicole Stott and also Dr. Sian Proctor, who you might recognize from the Inspiration 4 mission. She was the pilot for that. So another reminder too, Nicole will be doing a book signing after this presentation. So if you're interested in picking up a copy of her book, we have them for sale over here in our gift shop, and her table will be right back there too. So I don't want to talk on anymore. I want to hand it on over to you guys. So thank you so much for being here again. Put your hands together for our guests.
Well, thank you very much for coming. It's my pleasure to get a chance to chat with my two friends here, Nicole and Sian. And I think what we're going to start with is we have some brief introductory videos, and then we'll have a conversation. And then after that, we'll open it up to questions. So why don't we roll? Let's see what we got for the first video here. I've actually read that book. It's a good book.
From some extraordinary vantage points. From inner space on the Aquarius undersea habitat to outer space on the International Space Station. Witnessing the complexity of human survival in these extreme environments, I discovered three unifying and life-changing lessons. We live on a planet, an overwhelmingly beautiful, glowing, colorful, crystal clear planet. We are all Earthlings, and the only border that matters is that thin blue line of atmosphere that blankets and protects us all. We build our spaceships as mechanical life support systems, like the ISS, to mimic as best we can what Earth does for us naturally. As a crew on the space station, we know that our survival depends on staying acutely aware of the health and well-being of our atmosphere, of our spaceship, and of all our crewmates. In contrast, here on Spaceship Earth, we pollute our atmosphere, our oceans, and our soils. We are experiencing devastating impacts to our planetary life support system and to all life we share our planet with. To survive and thrive, we must bring these three simple lessons of planet, Earthling, and thin blue line into our daily lives. I came back to Earth knowing that by behaving like crewmates, not passengers, we have the power to create a future for all life on Earth that's as beautiful as it looks from space.
And that book, you have a bunch of copies here for people to sign.
I do.
Okay, cool.
Highly recommend it.
It's a good book. I actually read this book, and it is a great book.
And there is a little blurb from you in here.
There's a blurb from me in the book, but the other writings is much better than my blurb. It's a great book. All right, we have, and then we have another slide and video, I think, for Sian. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
The day of launch, I'm going to be thinking about how my entire life has led up to this moment. I was born on the island of Guam, and the reason why I was born there is that my dad worked for the NASA tracking station. And so I feel like space has always been a part of me. When I got that call, that Zoom, and Jared was on there, and he said that, you know, they picked me for the Prosperity seat, that I was going to go to space with him and be part of the Inspiration 4. It really was like getting the golden ticket for Willy Wonka. Everything in my life finally came into focus, and I realized that it was all about this moment in time. I won the Prosperity seat for Inspiration 4, and I did that not as a geoscientist or an explorer or an analog astronaut, which are all on my resume. I actually won this as a poet and an artist. We are striving for that Star Trek generation, that idea of a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, or a Jedi space. I'm going to be the first Black female pilot of a spacecraft ever. And to me, that just blows me away. And I want to encourage the next generation to dream that this is possible. And a Jedi space, that's what that's about. I'm Dr. Sian Proctor, and I'm a mission pilot for Inspiration 4.
Thank you.
And your book, you have a book, but it's not, there it is right there.
I do have a book.
So-
I self-published it. You can get it on Amazon. But yeah, thank you. It's a book of art and poetry.
Nice, very nice. All right, so why don't we start off? I guess we'll go back and forth here, but we'll start with Nicole maybe, and then Sian. Same question though. You talked a little bit about in your video, Sian, especially yours, about how you got to where you were. We talk a little bit about how you got to space. What was that journey like to get you there, and how art was involved? Because that's, I think, a unique thing with both of you, of how your journey to space and how art helped get you there and was involved in getting you the chance to fly.
Well, I think the journey was a long one. I think no matter who we are with respect to getting to space, it either feels like a long one or it really was a long one. I grew up, I'm really thankful to have parents who shared what they loved with me. My mom, she was a nurse, but a very creative woman, still is. And if I got to an art class or a ballet class or to softball practice, it was because of my mom. And I'm very thankful for that, just kind of building up along with me as I was growing up. I loved artsy, craftsy things. I loved building things. And my dad liked to build and fly small airplanes, which I think was a very creative process as well. Certainly when you looked at our bikes and my mom's washer and dryer that was in the garage where my dad was building things and painting them, we were speckled with all of those colors. So I maybe didn't even know that was influencing me somehow. But I grew up loving flying and wanting to know how things fly. And when I went to university, I studied how airplanes fly. And while I was there, I'm like, man, if you want to know how airplanes fly, why would you not want to know how rocket ships fly? Which then led me to working as an engineer at Kennedy Space Center, seeing what astronauts do. Very long path to realizing that, man, this astronaut thing might be possible, to at least consider. Because up till that point, I don't know about you guys, but I thought, man, that's something other special people get to do. Why would they ever pick me? And very thankful to some folks that I consider to be mentors who did nothing more than encourage me to pick up the pen and fill out the application, which I think in the grand scheme of things is the only thing that we have control of in the whole process, is making that decision to put ourselves out there. Very thankful to them. And then jump ahead, quite a few years to flying the first time. And when we get ready to fly in space, I think the same was true for you, Sian. There's this opportunity to take up a little bit of like personal items. It might just be a little box of them or a bigger box. And remember our friend Mary Jane Anderson, flight crew equipment? She was the woman who helped us pack all of our stuff for space. And she was the one who reminded me, she's like, Nicole, you know, you're going to be living up there, not just working there. You're going to have free time. Think about bringing something you love doing down here on Earth with you to space. That turned out to be a watercolor kit. Very personal highlight for me was the opportunity to paint in space, to share the experience of what that view out the window was like through what I would call a very elementary kind of painting. But it stuck with me, and it's influenced everything I've done since then with art and space.
So just a couple things there. You were selected in the class of 2000. And then you flew in 2009. We were talking about that. It took a while. We had some things that slowed us down a little bit back then. But you were up there for quite a while. You were an expedition crew member on Space Station, which you needed a hobby apparently, right? Was my missions were kind of short, a couple weeks at a time. But being able to do something like that is pretty cool.
It is. It's really, although I think from the time humans have been flying in space, I like to think about it like it's putting a human in human space flight, right? Even those really super short missions that were happening in the beginning, you know, we think about Alexei Leonov purposely brought up colored pencils with him and sketched orbital sunrises and sunsets. And then later on the Apollo-Soyuz mission, that kind of historic, iconic mission where the Soviets and the U.S. came together, he sketched portraits of all the crewmates. And Tom Stafford still has that, like, over his fireplace at home. So there's been art and music and all of this with us in space since the very beginning. And I even discovered, I don't know if you know about this one, Dan Bursch, I would never expect that. Another one of our astronaut colleagues weaved baskets in space. Dan Bursch is a basket weaver, and I asked him, I'm like, Dan, did you weave baskets in space? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, why didn't we know about that? He's like, can you imagine if I had been like publicizing I'm weaving baskets in space? Like, we send astronauts to be basket weavers in space, and they are the most beautiful, meticulously done baskets. They're extraordinary. But, you know, if you weren't a photographer before you get there, you become one. Our friend Karen Nyberg quilted in space. You know, there's poetry written, music played. It's been there, jingle bells with a little bells and a harmonica back on a Gemini mission. You know, it's been there since the beginning. And I'm so happy to see, you know, our friends like Sian taking that, like, very purposely taking that forward with us as we explore space.
Awesome. All right, Sian, how about you? Your journey to get there, again, it was a little bit in your video, but tell us more about that and how art played a huge role in that.
I was chasing space my entire life because I was born on the island of Guam. And the reason why I was born there was my dad was working at the NASA tracking station during the Apollo missions. And so I grew up with all of this NASA memorabilia to my dad. And I thought, wow, you know, how great would it be to become a military fighter pilot and then a space shuttle, because I grew up during that era, fly the space shuttle. And then about 15, I got glasses, and because I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy in the 80s, you weren't going to be a military aviator, but I thought that was my only path to becoming an astronaut. And I didn't even think that I would ever be smart enough, I guess it was in my head, to be a mission specialist and do all of that. And so I gave up on that dream. And then in my late 30s, somebody said, NASA's looking for astronauts, you should apply. And so I applied for the 2009 astronaut selection process, and I got down to this yes-no phone call. And you think, oh my goodness, I'm actually maybe going to make it. And then unfortunately it was a no. And I thought, okay, well, how do I help advance human spaceflight if I'm not going to be a NASA astronaut? So I became what's called an analog astronaut, living in Moon and Mars simulations. And so I lived in a 4-month Mars simulation investigating food strategies for long-duration spaceflight in Hawaii. And so I was doing those things. And then COVID happened. And I'm a geoscientist by training, so a geology professor. And how many of you took up a new activity during COVID? Like, how many of you baked? Raise your hand if you became a sourdough expert during COVID. All right, how many of you picked up a musical instrument during COVID, right? Ways of coping. And so for me, I picked up art and poetry during COVID as a way of dealing with the isolation and confinement. And literally 9 months later, from me starting to do art and poetry, Inspiration 4 was announced as the first all-civilian mission to orbit, and that you could win your seat, a seat to space, by showing your entrepreneurial spirit. And so I thought, well, I just found my authentic voice as an artist and a poet. I am going to write a poem called Space to Inspire, and I read this poem as my video entry, and that won me my seat to space. And yeah. And then I got to say, and it was really interesting because you show up at SpaceX and you're like, okay, I'm an artist and a poet. I want to paint in space. And SpaceX was like, you're not painting in space, with the SpaceX Dragon. I said, no, there's precedence to this. And I pointed out that I sent them Nicole and all of her stuff. She paved the way for me to be able to paint in space because she was the example that I was able to show to SpaceX that we could do it. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I can read. Do you want to hear the poem?
I'd like to hear the poem.
All right, it's called Space to Inspire. All right, I feel like I have to stand up. All right. You've got space. I've got space. We all have space to inspire. That's why we dream of going higher and higher. But what is space if you can't breathe? Let's stop sucking out the air of our humanity. We have a moment to seize the light, Earth from space, both day and night. We have J for justice, to ignite the bold. We have E for equity, to cut past the old. We have D for diversity, to end the fight. We have I for inclusion, to try to make it right. A Jedi space to rally behind. A universal force so big it binds. Inspiration to change the world. A new beginning for us to hold. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about space to inspire for all of humanity. Science, technology, engineering, and math sending us out on the explorer's path. But don't forget the arts, the heartbeat of time. Consider sending a poet who knows how to rhyme. So let us drop the mic and close the capsule door, but please make sure Dr. Proctor's on board. My space to inspire is what we need. Inspiration for all of humanity.
So that was the winner.
That poem won me a seat to space.
That's a pretty good poem. All right, so that's your path. We talked a little bit about things you did. Some top memories, Nicole, in the art. Do we see some pictures? I don't know if you've known some of the things you painted. What are some of the memories of your flight? You had 2 flights. One was a long duration flight. You went up and back on the shuttle, right? And then a shuttle flight toward the end. It was the third to last flight of the shuttle program. You guys second to last. You guys are third to last. Third to last flight. So if you can just share with us some of those memories, and also some of you can see that thing actually, that was you had that in the cupola?
I did, but we set it up after.
You did? And that's not the same thing that's back there?
No, it's a different one that's
I would
back
hope
there,
so,
yeah.
Because that would make it very rare, the one you had back there. But tell us a little bit about some of the things you did in space and some of those memories and how art was related to what you did up there.
Well, I think art was related all along. There was the painting in space on the first mission, which certainly was, for me, really was a personal highlight of the flight. I think it has allowed me to share the experience in a unique way after flying in space. Whether anybody, I was talking to Ross earlier, whether anybody likes my artwork or not, I think it's a really neat platform because I believe art's like a universal communicator. You can engage with pretty much anyone, even if they don't like your art, right? But it's just a wonderful way to get people, and there are people, I know all of you are not these people. But there are people who don't even know there is an International Space Station, right? kind of makes the stomach churn. But art, I think, is a way for us to share that experience or share these special experiences. So I really appreciated that. I think before, like, that second flight on the STS-133 mission, which was the final flight of Discovery, and when we were first assigned to that flight, it was meant to be the final flight of the space shuttle program. And I've got the patch here for the STS-133 mission, and I think you guys might argue about spaceflight patches, but I think it's one of the most beautiful patches ever created. And the way art connected with that was, we thought, okay, we're the final flight of the shuttle. We want to make a really special patch. We want it to be kind of simple to represent, the history, the legacy of the space shuttle. And we reached out to a really amazing artist named Robert McCall, who, if there's probably somewhere in this museum, there's likely a Robert McCall painting.
He's got the big mural at the Air and Space Museum. Right?
And there's ginormous murals at Air and Space. He did some of the very earliest. I think he did the STS-1 patch. He did Star Trek art. He did Space, 2001: A Space Odyssey artwork. A really incredible artist. And we reached out to him to do our patch, and he did it. And I think it represents beautifully his style, but also I think it really represents the space shuttle program very well. And then highlights for me, besides art in space, I don't know, just being there with a really cool crew is, I think everything we do comes down to the people you spend your time there with. Getting to float with people like that, fly in front of a window and look out at the planet. I don't know. Spacewalk's not bad. It's kind of at the top of the list, too. Flying the robotic arm, all the science. Pretty awesome.
Now, the paintings we've seen here that are popping up, did you know what you wanted to paint before you got there? Did you get inspired by something you saw that said, I really want to paint this? How did that work?
Yeah, I had no plan other than I had the paint kit, which when some of you go up to the space station, if we ever get back up there, I have people on a mission searching for that paint kit that I left up there. But anyway, no, I had no plan. And I just kind of over time, looking through the window, was looking for that place that I wanted to paint. And one night, I guess it was a day pass on Earth, it popped up. And it was this tiny little chain of islands on the northern coast of Venezuela called Los Roques. And to me, I just remember looking at it and thinking, oh my gosh, it looks like somebody reached down with a big paintbrush and painted a wave on the ocean. And I'm like, okay, that's it. And it had all my favorite colors of Earth, all the turquoises and blues, and it was just stunning. And so, yeah. And as you can imagine, you can't float in front of the window and paint what you're seeing out the window, because at 5 miles a second, it's going to be gone before you can get the brush to the paper, as you know. And so I printed it out on a little scrap sheet of paper, and then would just work on it at night outside of my crew compartment. Yeah.
Sian, how about you in space? You said they let you paint. Did you paint it in space? How'd you get inspired? What are some of the things that stand out to you?
We had the cupola, but like Nicole was saying, you're moving so fast and going into day and night to draw and paint an entire thing. It just takes too long. But before I went to space, I actually had an idea of what I wanted to paint in space. And so I have my character Afro Gaia, or Mother Earth as I refer to her. And so I wanted to have her in it, along with, colors that represented the beauty of our planet, followed by the SpaceX Dragon capsule also up there. And so I actually did two pieces. And so one of them was a dragon for our Dragon capsule leaving the Earth. And actually, I don't have a picture up here. This picture I took because I'm an astronomy fan, and that was me living in the Mars simulation for 4 months. But let me see if I can bring this up real quick here so you can see my painting in space. So this is what I painted in space right here. And I feel very, very fortunate, because we were only in space for 3 days, but my crew members, it takes hours to do that, and they gave me the space to be able to take. And then I also drew my dragon. So that was a dragon that I drew while I was in space. But we also had, like, my crew member Chris Dombrowski brought a ukulele and he played that while up in the cupola. So again, music being a big part of the experience, but also Nicole. We worked with Nicole and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. One of our goals as an inspiration for a mission was to raise $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital to try to end childhood cancer. My crew member Haley Arsenault is a childhood cancer survivor, and so she flew with me and has a prosthesis in her leg. And so Nicole helped make, like you saw the space suits, she helped make beautiful jackets for me and my 3 other crew members with art that the kids of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital made, and had it all stitched together in these jackets that we brought to space, and we wore them, and then we auctioned them off to raise money for St. Jude. And so,
you know what was one of the coolest things about those jackets, though, was that each of you had your space for art, too. And each crew member did their own original artwork on the jackets, too. It was so awesome.
So there's these special one-of-one jackets that are out there in the world that flew to space with us. But again, we had this connection with St. Jude and art and art therapy. And I know Nicole does a lot of that with her foundation. And this whole idea of having kids be able to express themselves creatively, particularly when they're going through really tough times in their life. And so having St. Jude and art as part of our mission was so important.
Okay, so I've got one more basic question, and then we'll go out to the crowd here. But with all these experiences that you've had in space and artwork, what are you doing now and looking forward? What combining all these things, the art and the space and everything else? What's happening now? I know we know about the books. What else you got going? You got a cool project. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, I think if I could do nothing else, it would be working with the kids with the Space for Art Foundation. And our mission statement is that we're uniting a planetary community of children through the awe and wonder of space exploration and the healing power of art. So space-themed art therapy, if in the simplest way, I guess. And we started in one hospital in Houston, and now we've branched out to kids all over the world, hospitals, refugee centers, orphanages. And I'll tell you, I really feel like I discovered my next mission in life. From the very first session with these kids, it was like, oh my gosh, I got to go to space so I could come back to Earth and do this work with these kids. It's just been like, I don't know, like life started again with respect to all of that. And really feel very fortunate to just be able to continue that work and branch it out more and more to more kids around the world. And it's like Sian said, these kids, they're going through what you hope is the worst thing they ever have to go through in their life. And somehow, space is really inspirational. And the opportunity to have a creative outlet to go along with that, these kids are thinking about their future. It's a transcendent experience for them in a place that you hope they never have to visit again.
And the spacesuit that you have on display here, and that a different one flew in space.
Yeah.
What's the story behind all that?
So what we started with at first was with art spacesuits. And the very first one, like I said, was just kids from MD Anderson in Houston. And then the suit that you saw in the pictures here, and that with some of the videos at the back, that's a suit called Unity that was built with kids in hospitals in all of our International Space Station partner countries. And that one, we had the opportunity to fly it to space. It was so much fun. Peggy Whitson wore it and flew it through the space station. We did a video conference from Mission Control with kids that we could bring to the hospital, and then the mission controls around the world, and then piped it into the hospitals and stuff. And then we've just kind of progressed from there. The suit that you see here tonight is called Beyond. It was built during the plague, those 2 years. We collected all of the artwork. It's meant to be the ambassador for Spaceship Earth, really telling the story of this connection between personal health and planetary health, and how we all need to behave like crewmates and not passengers. And we have artwork from at least one child in every country on the planet on that suit. And hopeful to be able to tour it around to some of those places that participated. And while we can never promise to send anything to space, we're always very hopeful and are looking for any opportunity that might open up to be able to do that.
And the suit's with us today.
There is a suit with us today,
so
beyond.
Make sure you check that out. Okay. Sian, what do you got going? What's your current projects and
well, I've got two really big things that I've been working on. One is that being a new artist, started during 2020. I have an artist in residence with Arizona State University, so I'm developing my craft, and so I have some of my new art, on my table back there. But then I also started a foundation, and it's my first year of it. It's called the Proctor Foundation for Art and Science. I have been a community college professor for over 20 years, and so the community college system is really near and dear to my heart and often gets overlooked for a lot of things. And so I started a foundation where I'm sending BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color to space camp who are community college students, but they're art and humanities students and not your typical science students. And so we have our first cohort of BIPOC community college students going to space camp this summer, and it'll be fun to see how their art and humanities creativity can ignite some creativity in the space industry.
Okay, why don't we see what's on the minds of our friends out here?
All right, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand and we can come around. Any questions? Oh, got them. Okay, let's head on over here. This is always the fun part where I try to sneak in between people. Okay, sorry.
Have anybody meditated in space, and how does it differ from meditating on Earth?
I'm still figuring out how to meditate on Earth, so I've been doing that very poorly, with my mantras and stuff. So,
I did not meditate in space, but when I came back to Earth, I was trying to find the closest thing to what it felt like to be floating in front of the window and experiencing Earth like as our planetary home. All of this, the interconnectivity of all these things you hear about looking at Earth from space, and because I remember being in space, and if I went to the window during the day, I had to set the alarm on my watch because it was like to remind me to go back to work, because it was just like this transcendent, you just got sucked into the view out the window. And so I wanted to find something like that coming back to Earth, and meditation has been the closest thing that I could find. I'm very thankful to have had like this teacher over the interweb during the plague even helped me figure that out. And if you can do that in one of those float tanks and really get to where the lid is closed and the water is the same temperature as your body, that's the closest I can come to what it felt like to move in space. And then I would highly encourage something called earthing, which you probably already know if you're asking a meditation question, but which I just discovered when I was looking for a yoga mat. So, searching a yoga mat and came across earthing, which I do every day now. I wake up in the morning and I purposefully barefoot go outside, stand in the grass, and just chill for a little bit and just think about the fact that my feet are on a planet. And there is a grounding kind of effect that goes on between the charge in your body and the charge of the planet. And I think if you pay attention close enough, you can maybe get a sense of that. But just that experience of acknowledging I'm on a planet, and then looking up at the sky that seems to go on forever, but acknowledging the reality that it is like this veil-thin blanket around us. I get goosebumps thinking about it. Every day, that's what I do now. And I'd encourage you all to do it. It's really incredible. It's absolutely it is a grounding, meditative thing. It makes you realize your connection to everything, and that right now we're sitting on a planet that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and yet we just feel like we're where we're supposed to be because we are. And then it all kind of makes sense, and it makes you love the people around you and appreciate all the awe and wonder that surrounds us every day. It's pretty extraordinary.
Did you?
I don't. No, I didn't. I really enjoyed the view out the window. I don't know if it meditation, but it was certainly listening to music and looking at the view. I think what it did is it made me appreciate how beautiful our planet is. Earth is a beautiful place. I think it was meant to be seen from orbit when you see it in its full beauty. But what that did is it helped me appreciate what we have around us. So I live here in New York City, and it's a beautiful place. I love going through Central Park. Cherry blossoms are changing colors these past couple weeks. And so I think it has made me appreciate just the beauty around us, even the weather. I know it might be raining outside now. But even the buildings that we have here in the city and the views that we have, there's a beauty to it. And all the people, even riding the subway, just the full experience we have of being here. I think that my experience in space has helped me appreciate that more. So,
all right, we have another question over here.
Thank you so much for being here. I think you answered a part of my question, but I'm wondering, how has your perspective of life changed after coming back from space?
Well, I mean, I think I spoke to a little bit of it in the whole meditation earthing thing, but I don't think there's any, and these are things we know before we ever go to space. Kind of the simple lessons for me, I try to sum it up because I do think about things simply, but, oh my gosh, we live on a planet. That, we're all earthlings, only border that matters, that thin blue line of atmosphere. And that's my mantra, every day now, is planet, earthling, thin blue line. And the sense of interconnectivity of absolutely everything, oh my God, there is no other side of the planet. It's this one beautiful thing. The opportunity to float in space and look at it. I think about it watching storms on Earth. So cool to see a thunderstorm and the lightning strikes, and how it was that was the wake up call for me. Man, I grew up in Florida, and when I saw, you experience thunderstorms, and it's when it's gone, it's gone. That was over me. It's gone, it's gone. But it is not. It's this, neurons firing in a brain and just wrapping around the Earth and looking alive. Or watching a hurricane, move across the ocean, and how beautiful it looks from space. And you're watching it with the mute button on it. It's the weirdest thing. And you're seeing this fluffy, white, gorgeous thing. And then in your brain, you're like, man, I know my friends in Florida are not appreciating this the same way I am right now, right? Just the contrast in that gets you thinking about things a little bit differently. There's a lot to it. But I don't think you have to go to space to understand all of that either.
The Earth is a planet thing, though.
Yeah.
All right. So on my first flight, I got a chance to spacewalk a couple times, and there was one other rookie on the flight. I was a rookie astronaut. One of my classmates, Dwayne Carey, Digger, was the pilot. He's an Air Force pilot, and he wasn't going to get a chance to spacewalk because he was busy flying a spaceship and all that. So he said to me, he goes, and we were very good friends. And he goes, Mass, look, he goes, I want to know, that was my nickname is Mass. So he says, Mass, I'm not going to get a chance to spacewalk. I'm a pilot. I'm not going to get a chance to go outside. So I want you to tell me what it's like. And I want to know I want a full report. These other veteran guys, they say stuff. And, it's good. But I want to hear it from you. I can't go, so you're going to go out there. I want you to come back and tell me what it's like. So I go, you got it. So we go out, we do the spacewalk, and I look around. It's extraordinary. And I come in, and I'm hanging on the airlock. So you get back in the airlock, and you're hanging off of there. And then you need help getting your helmet and all that off. So Digger is right in my face. So he's like this, and he gets in the air. He's the first guy. He didn't even know how to take the helmet off. He's just, he's in there waiting, trying to help. But he's there because he wants to hear my reaction. He doesn't want it to get polluted by anything else that might happen, like me eating a sandwich. He wants to get before he even get so the helmet comes off, and he's right there in my face. He goes, what was it like out there? And I go, Digger, you won't believe it. And he goes, what's that? I said, the Earth is a planet. And that's the thing I said to him. He goes, what? And he looks at me like, what was going on inside of that spacewalk, inside of your space here? And I go, it's a planet, man. It's not what we think it is. And I went on to tell him, we think the Earth was this place where it's like two-dimensional and we're safe and we go places and we drive here, we come to the museum, you go to work or whatever. But it's not that at all, because I could look and I could see the Earth, and then I could look and see the stars and the sun in a black sky and maybe the moon and every once in a while a satellite, and realize we're right out there traveling around in all of this chaos that's there. The Earth is a planet. So when you said that, I was like, that's exactly what I reported to Digger. It's the same exact thing.
You can go on to another question.
Okay, in the first row here.
How do you do art in space?
For me, I was really lucky again because Nicole had led the way, and what the key is that you don't want things to float away. Now, this is a difference. I guess I've never asked Nicole this. Is that when I went to space, now you can buy paintbrushes that you can preload with water. And then, so they come with the ability to have water in them, and you can squeeze them, and the water will come out to the bristles, and surface tension will hold that water to the bristles, and then you go and you swirl it into your watercolor, and again, surface tension will hold it there, and then you can go to your canvas and paint it on. So I was like, wow, this isn't as bad as I thought. But for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So you're trying to brace yourself in the spacecraft, and as you paint, you get pushed back, and so you're kind of bobbing and weaving because you can float. And so trying to be able to control yourself. And so SpaceX helped me create a painting kit that had Velcro, so I could Velcro everything and stick it to stuff so it wouldn't float away. But I did lose one of the caps to my watercolor pen, and it floated away, and I thought, oh no, what's going to happen? But luckily it floated all the way over to Haley, and Haley got it and gave it back to me. And so it wasn't too bad actually painting in space.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't have the water pens or the water brushes, but I wish, I only have one picture of painting in space. I think it pops up here every now and then, which I thank my crewmate Bob Thirsk for, just floating by and taking a picture. I wish I would have videotaped the whole thing, because I think by painting in space, you're squirting out a ball. You don't have a cup of water to dip your brush in. You're squirting out this ball of water. It's floating. You're kind of dipping your brush into this floating ball of water. There's that before the brush even touches the ball of water, because of that surface tension and the way it behaves, it's like the water wanted to move onto the end of the brush. It was the coolest thing. And then watching that with the paint and the paper, and if I actually touched the brush to the paper, the whole blob of colored water went in, into the paper. So I kind of got to the point where I had to drag the ball of water, the colored ball of water, along the paper. So to me, when I think about it now, it reminded me of just how everything that we do, the way our bodies float, the way the fluids in our bodies float up, shift up to our heads, the way we move, the way you got to keep track of your stuff, the whole way you have to change how you live and work in this new environment. I think you could have represented it through painting with watercolors. And what I realized is it wasn't more difficult. It was just different. And you had to take into account all of these kind of subtleties of what floating in space means to be able to do something that you love in a whole new way. Very cool.
Great question.
All right behind him over here.
Okay, how do you guys, what do you guys eat in space? And I have one more question. How do satellites work? How do satellites work, and what do you guys eat in space?
I'll take the eat in space. They
We
can take
actually
the satellites.
have people who are going to be talking about cube satellites that you could talk to back there about that. But yeah, what do you eat in space? That's a good question.
Well, we had pizza, cold pizza, which was delicious, and I had the best BLT of my life up in space. So we actually ate really good. We had M&Ms, Skittles, granola bars, but the pizza and the BLT were definitely two of my favorites.
I think on Shuttle and Station, we have a lot of food that's packaged, like ready to eat, the military rations or stuff that they've sucked all the water out of and you have to add water into it to eat. But I don't know about you, Mike, but I thought it all tasted really good. And on the space station, we had even a more of a variety than we do on the shuttle because we had the International Space Station partners. And so we had food from all of the different countries. And, man, it just really tasted good. There was a nice variety of food, I thought. And there's nothing like floating around a dinner table either. It's really cool to eat in space.
Yeah, I really like the food as well. I think I'm one of only 2 people that gained weight in space. I'm serious. Did you? But
Mike Barrett gained weight in space.
He did?
He did.
How many times? Because I did it twice.
I don't know.
Mark Lee only did it once, but I did it twice. And we didn't have pizza.
No.
Now, what did you guys like stop off at the deli? Yeah, you kind of like made it, but
But you had hot food. We there was no cooling or freezing element in the Dragon capsule. It's designed to go to the International Space Station, but we were doing a free flyer mission, so we just orbited and lived in the Dragon capsule for 3 days. And so SpaceX made a cooler out of foam and stuff, and then for ice they just froze our iced tea, our tea, and our coffee. So we had frozen coffee in the morning, and that kept pizza and BLTs nice and delicious and cold.
Very clever. I actually ordered a pizza from space on landing day before we closed the computer. I put my order in at Abatino's. Remember that place?
And that was...
It doesn't exist anymore. But down at the Cape, that's right. Because I didn't trust anybody. I thought they would screw it up. I said, no, I'm doing this directly.
That's what I got, too. They were like, what did you miss while you were in space? And the food is really good, but there's not a lot of mix of textures, right? You don't get, and I'm like, man, I want a slice of New York-style pizza, the crunchy crust and the sauce and the melted cheese. Yeah. And I don't drink a lot of soda, but I wanted a Coca-Cola, real Coke, full-blown, no diet stuff, crushed ice, that Sonic crushy, chewy ice in a styrofoam cup with a slice of pizza.
It's amazing what you miss, right?
And they give it to you.
You can. You pretty much when you get back, you get whatever you want.
Yeah. Until they forget about you a week
until
later.
Like a couple hours.
Because there's another crew going to space after you. You're done.
But the other question we had was about satellites.
Yeah.
So how they work. It all depends on what the satellite does. And once anything can be a satellite, the space station is a satellite. It orbits around our planet. The Hubble Space Telescope where I went is a satellite. It also orbits around our planet. So they work. I mean, there's a lot of things we can go with, but like they're powered typically from like the Hubble and the space station and many other satellites from solar power because they're out in the sun. There's a lot of energy from the sun. So typically they're solar powered. Sometimes they're powered through other sources, and they transmit information usually to the ground. Things we're interested in. A lot of them are for communications, for us to use the internet, and that's growing more and more as we have more needs to do that. More things are getting launched, and they stay in orbit. They get launched. They go very, very quickly. In order to stay in orbit, they go very, very fast, and eventually orbits do decay, and that sometimes can cause a problem if they re-enter and so on. But there's a lot to it. That's a pretty, that question is a lot of different ways we can go with it. But there's a lot of them out there. You can see them in space. Did you see them when you're out there? You can see them out in the distance. One of my spacewalks, you see this thing going. You can also see them if you're interested. There's an app to follow the space station, and there's one for Hubble too, and probably other things too. You can look up at certain times during the day, usually right before or after sunset, or right around when the sun, just after sunset or right before sunrise, you can look and see these things in the sky. So that's pretty cool to see them fly overhead.
And it's really, I think it's really neat when you start thinking, like just even acknowledging that there are satellites is a really cool thing to do. You meant like communication and, how do we get from point A to point B? I remember talking to somebody recently about that because we were talking about like all of the things. And I would argue that everything we do in space ultimately is about improving life on Earth, right? All those satellites up there helping us measure the vital signs of the planet to solve the problems that we have. But I was talking to somebody recently about the value of space and what it brings back to Earth. And I finally said, well, how do you must use GPS, how you get from point A to point B now. And they said to me, I don't need GPS, I have my phone. And so we had to have the little conversation. But it's incredible how satellites and all of what we're doing in space are just embedded just every day in our daily lives and adding value. Yeah, crazy.
All right, we have a question against the wall over here.
Thank you. First, thank you guys for your work as art advocates, the importance of art, and that's how I kind of see a lot of your efforts. My question comes in, oftentimes people don't see the value of art. If you look at our school systems, when there's limited resources, the first thing that goes is art programs for children. And so I'd love to hear your experiences on the front line of advocating for art, where at NASA there were scarce resources, at SpaceX there's scarce resources, you have a limited shuttle. What was some of the pushback you got that said, oh, art isn't as important as X, Y, or Z, and how did you respond to that? So we can take that as an example when we're dealing with other programs here on Earth and saying, hey, no, space.art is important, we should hear important now.
I think, for me, the first pushback was when I brought it up to SpaceX, and first they were like, I think that they're in their head, there was like, there's going to be paint everywhere in the Dragon capsule, that this is going to be out of control. And for me, it became a non-issue as soon as I showed them what Nicole had done. And then SpaceX immediately turned and said, okay, we can figure, because they're really great about solving problems. And so they were like, okay, you can do it, but we're going to make sure you've got all the things that you need. And so that's when, the Velcro, and they created this beautiful case for me to paint with. And on my YouTube channel, you can actually see me painting in space. So I got video of that. And the advantage of going 12 years later, they made this case where my paper and all of my art supplies and everything was Velcroed in and stuff. So they really gave me the ability to access that and do it. But what I loved about my crew members is they were very supportive. They were like, absolutely, you're going to paint in space because, this is the second day going into the third day, and we all have stuff to do, and we got to pack up the capsule. And they're like, Sian, just go, get in the corner and make your painting. And so it was really great to have that support from not only SpaceX to make it happen and believe that I could do it, but also my crew members.
And I'm so thankful that the light switch went off and that happened. And for me, there was no pushback at all from, wanting to fly. I'm very thankful, like I said, to Mary Jane Anderson for even encouraging me to think about what that thing would be. And then it was just a matter of, okay, Nicole, you got to bring your paints in so we can make sure they're not toxic and that they won't pollute the air or whatever or make a big mess. Very supportive. And I think that's gone on all along within NASA. I mean, when I think about artistic, creative things, Mike, I always think about you. Remember the series of little video stories you were doing for the Public Affairs Office, I think. And it was like sharing all of the way training went. You came out on the pool deck when we were doing spacewalk training, and we're all talking, but it was in a really fun, creative, engaging way. Not something that NASA was typically known for doing. And I think it was really a spark that got a lot more of the creative communication about what we do in space going. So thank you. Thank you for that.
And art, I guess, can take
so many forms.
It can be storytelling. It can be artwork. It could be filmmaking. Writing.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
And then I just have to comment on, because I could talk all night about it, but I won't. I'm a rambler already. But the comment you made about art being the first thing that goes, it's why I struggle with the whole STEM thing, right? I don't want there to be any acronyms. I want my son using his whole brain. So I think by NASA and SpaceX and other kind of at the cutting edge tech agencies, proactively, actively incorporating art and storytelling and all kinds of creativity into the process, it will help encourage the schools to do so as well. Yeah.
All right, and then our last question we actually have from the internet. So
real quick, we've got folks watching online, and they were talking about astronauts normally don't have a lot of free time in space. You don't get to go up there and just sort of lounge around.
Basket weave? You don't get to go up there and basket weave?
Basket weave, nice. Zero-G basket weaving. But with the rise of commercial space travel, how do you think the role of astronauts will change as maybe they get more free time? Like, what may astronauts spend their time doing in space if it's not all experiment, science, work? For everybody up there.
Well, so I'm just going to say, I think as we look more, not just to the commercial side of, increasing the number of people that can have access to space, and that includes more scientists actually being able to travel to space to do their work. I think we're very shortly going to have to start thinking about when we leave Earth even further, and not just the moon, but as we do start to travel to Mars, because that's going to be in our future, and there's people in this room probably that are going to be the ones doing that, and maybe they'll call us and invite us to go with them. But, everywhere we've traveled in space so far, we've had this stunning view of our planet out the window, whether it's 250 miles or 250,000 miles. And now you're going to go to Mars. And that, I think at the closest, is like 35 million miles away. And so very shortly into that trip, you're going to lose sight of Earth as Earth. And you're not going to be in the Hollywood spaceship, right? You're going to be in a relatively small spaceship that they're like having to put the bathroom into the bulkhead of the spacecraft. And so I think this whole idea of art and creativity and the human is going to be even more important. And I'm looking forward to the Star Trek holodeck, quite honestly, to be part of what solves that problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, like you were saying, I think the big thing is being able to observe what's happening around you and experiencing that and being able to reflect back on that. And so as we go from low Earth orbit to the moon, Mars, and beyond, and there's fluctuations in what you're doing as an astronaut, time-wise, having the ability to look out the window and have this amazing view and create these perspectives that you can share through art and poetry and music and all of those things. I think that's so important. So when we're talking about your son using his whole brain, we want astronauts. We want people to be well-rounded and be able to express the things that are happening as humanity goes onward into this new frontier. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about what's going to happen. There's a picture that's going to come up in a minute here, I think, of me in the cupola, and you can see the light on my face, and that's Earth light, the light of our planet that's reflecting back. Think about moonlight and the way moonlight makes you feel when you walk outside, and then you imagine right here, that is all Earth light, not sunlight, our beautiful planet. But like you were saying, there's going to be a time when we get so far away that you won't be able to be bathed in Earthlight the way I was there. But I look forward to the day when the first astronauts get close enough to Mars and they look out the window and they get bathed in Mars light. And how will that make them feel? Will it have an emotional attachment to them that we don't understand yet? And so I'm excited for our future and the way that we're going to be able to capture those moments if we're thoughtful and send astronauts who are that also embrace the arts and in unique, expressive ways, their own creativity.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Let's give a round of applause for
Everyone
our guests.
Put your hands together again. Mike Massimino, Nicole Stott, Dr. Sian Proctor. So amazing to hear all of your experiences and just the impact, that your foundations too are having. It's so wonderful. So again, thank you for being here and for enlightening us with some art and space topic. So everyone, this is the end of our panel for now, but they are not going anywhere. As you may have noticed, we've got some tables over in the back there. Nicole Stott's going to be doing a book signing of her book back there. You can talk to her more about her experiences. Dr. Proctor is also going to be there at her table. She's got some cool art that you can create off of her own art, actually some coloring pages and talking a bit more about her foundation. We've got an artist, Ashley Zielinski, who has a VR experience that you can go through that's based on the James Webb Space Telescope. And also C. Bangs, who is the artist who put together some holograms for a CubeSat that's going to be sent into space hopefully in the next year or so. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be here through 9 o'clock. And I hope you all are having a wonderful time at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. And again, shout out to all of our fans and friends who are out on the internet watching us here tonight, too. All right. So have a great night, everyone. Have a great astronomy night. And we'll see you back here sometime soon.
All right. I should be here really quickly. Let's see if we're getting audio from me. It looks like we are. Good deal. Oh,
hi.
And Alicia.
Hello.
Too. How's it going?
Hi. Do I need a microphone?
Do we have another? Here's another lab for you right there.
Oh, is it on?
That one doing anything. Yeah, that one should be on. Yeah.
Hi.
So, anyways, we're actually here at
We are
Intrepid.
here.
We weren't just
We're here
streaming
again.
this. Yeah.
I feel like I just saw you here a couple months ago.
You know, we're out here every chance we get. But this is Astronomy Night. Yes. It's actually a free night at the museum,
It is.
right?
This is the first of our free Fridays here at the museum for the summer. So we'll be doing this through September. So come on. It's usually the last Friday of the month, but, you know, check
like
the
every
schedule.
month?
Every month.
Okay.
Every month until September. Through the weather and everything, you know. But we've also got movie nights that are going to be coming up as well. We're going to be doing, in May, Top Gun from the flight deck. Come on out for that.
The new Top Gun? The old Top Gun?
Actually, both. We're going to do the old one because it's a
we can
cult
say that.
classic. We always have people who come out every year and camp out to see it. It's an aircraft carrier. I mean, come on, you gotta. And then we're actually going to have Top Gun Maverick, the new one, at the end in August, I guess.
In August,
or
nice.
September, whatever. So, yeah, but Astronomy Nights, you know, always fun, always a blast here. We've got so many cool things. I mentioned earlier, we've got our education department doing activities and demonstrations downstairs.
Downstairs and behind, there's cables
Hangar
behind
crew.
us and all sorts of stuff.
This is new for us,
This is our
actually.
transmitter.
We're having a lot more. That's not exciting. We have a lot more engagement here tonight, which is cool. We have, again, our panelists, Sian Proctor and Nicole Stott, who are actually engaging with the public now, doing a book signing and doing some art activities. We've got an artist who made a VR experience based on the James Webb Space Telescope and worked with the whole team with that to have like a virtual space that they could engage in and talk in during the pandemic. And then the CubeSat exhibit over there, they're using holograms on light sails, like doing all this experimental technology. There's stuff going on.
This is why we need Alicia here. I could have never
I can
told you
talk.
all the
I can
stuff
talk.
that's going on. I'm like, I know there's stuff going on at Astronomy
There's a lot
Night,
of
but I
stuff going
can't
on.
mention
It's
what it
true.
all is. But
Yeah. But no, it's been great, and the turnout was great today, and thank you all for tuning in here as well. We love you. Yeah,
It
thanks
really
for
is,
coming.
like, it really is cool. Like, we say this every time. We stream the shows so you can sort of participate even though you can't make it here. If you ever make it to New York City, like you ever have any opportunity to come here, the Intrepid Museum is a place that you really want to see. There's so much to do in the city, but you have to spend like at least half a day. I don't know, is there
At
like
the
some...
Intrepid?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
it's
Intrepid.
huge, yeah.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
So come over here and check out things. They always have special events like this, like the Astronomy Night things that are going on.
And of course, Astro Live every
Astro
month,
Live,
which you
yes.
all already know about.
That's a thing. It's sort of this month's Astro Live is astronomy. That's where it came from originally, right?
It
was
is.
Astronomy Live.
It
became
is.
Astro Live.
Oh, yes, and I should mention, too, for those of you tuning in at home, next month, our topic for Astro Live is going to be crew capsule recovery. So there is a little bit of a tie-in with Intrepid. This is the 80th anniversary of the ship, the commissioning of the ship, 1943. Of course, it's a World War II era aircraft carrier, yada, yada. But also, we picked up spacecraft during the Mercury and Gemini eras. So we're going to be...
There's a mock-up hanging off the side.
There is.
There's like a
There's a
hidden
couple
exhibit
things, yeah.
at the museum, and if you know where to go on the hangar deck, there's like a little door with a little window and a little plaque next to it, and
Or
you
you
can
can
look
see
out the
outside,
secret window, and you can see the...
It's the Gemini capsule
Yeah.
being recovered.
Very
So
cool.
we're going to be talking with it's not 100% confirmed yet, but we're going to be
Well, tell 'em
looking.
then.
We're going to be looking into how recovery will be for Artemis 2, and then also how SpaceX crew capsule stuff is. Maybe the diver. You know, I know
Can we
you
get the
want
diver
I
that
know
does
you
the
want
backflip? Which is like
Not the
engineers
diver.
and whatever engineers.
They'll talk about the diver, but
we
we
just
don't
want the
actually
diver to do a backflip. Like just
That'd be
get them
cool.
here.
Just get, like,
they
a
could do a
kiddie pool.
backflip off the side of the
Off
museum.
the Intrepid. like Nick Cage in National Treasure, just jump off the side of the Intrepid.
Wait,
what
is
could
that a
possibly
thing?
go wrong? Yes.
That really happened?
Yep. Have you
I
never
knew,
seen
no, I
National
knew Will
Treasure?
Smith hit golf balls in I Am Legend.
Off of the A-12, which was not
Yeah.
real.
Was
That
like,
was,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was that was forced.
But it was like a thing.
But no,
he really jumped off the side.
That's what I've been told. I don't know. I feel like I might break a few bones if I did that, but
Anyways, that's our thing here tonight. We're going to go ahead and shut the stream down. As always, we know we were competing with the Falcon Heavy that is scheduled to launch at 8:26 right now. It is. So if you're missing out on that stream, likely you had it up in 2 windows. But Falcon Heavy, last I saw, I'd have to come over here and see if there's been an update. I don't know if it's still on or not, but last I heard it was for 8:26 this evening. They pushed it back towards the end of the window, but competing with Falcon Heavy, tough act to compete against. But thank y'all so much for hanging
archived,
out.
so they
It
can come
is.
back and watch it whenever.
Yeah, you can watch the shows whenever. But
Whenever.
thank y'all
It's
as
great.
always for hanging out wherever you're hanging out at or wherever you're watching from. You're on the Intrepid social media channels. You're on Facebook. You're on their YouTube. Click like and subscribe there or whatever they do on Facebook these days.
Ring the bells,
Ring
all
the
the
bells.
things.
You're on the Twitch streams. you know how to get back to a Twitch stream if you want. And if you're on the NSF YouTube channel, well, clearly you must be a super fan because you're watching this show instead of the Falcon Heavy show. So you're awesome. I wish I had free merch to hand out, but I don't. So,
thank you.
Anyways, that's going to be the end of the show here from Intrepid for now. And I'm sure everybody will mosey over to see if Falcon Heavy makes it through the weather tonight. I think it was like shaping up. It was rough yesterday.
Yeah.
Did you see the lightning?
Yeah, it hit. Yeah,
Yikes.
I did. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yikes, you bet, concur.
Anyways, we're going to go ahead and shut down the show.
All right.
You can just do them all yourself.
Yeah, I can.
Good
I
grief.
just did.
We're going to shut down this stream. We'll leave you in the capable hands of all the other things that are going on. As always, thanks for watching. Again, from the Intrepid Museum, this was Astro Live, a special Astro Live on a Friday night here as part of the astronomy night that's happening. But I'm John Gallo.
And I'm Alicia Siegel.
And we will see you nerds later. Now I just have to like awkwardly come over here and click the thing at the right time. There, see? And then I'm just going to like go there.